Now welcome to another lightning response video, where this time I'll try to get to a few questions here, starting with this one from Sonic Vegeta, who asked, "Hey Thor, I've seen a few people try to say that the lightsaber is just a tool and have a problem with the whole 'a lightsaber is a Jedi's life' thing. I was wondering if you could explain why that saying exists in the first place."
Next time, try not to lose it.
Yes, Master.
This weapon is your life.
I try, Master.
Alright, so this is certainly one of those things that over the years, or since episode 2, I have seen a lot of people sort of arguing or debating or just kind of speculating on, with some saying it makes no sense for a lightsaber to be their life, since a lightsaber is a possession and they're not even allowed to have possessions or to become attached to them, so how could a possession be so important to them as to be their life? Others, as you kind of point out, will say that a lightsaber is nothing more than a tool that can be used for any number of things, anything from a light source or a flashlight or a torch, basically, to use to open doors, or use to defend yourself with it, which is obviously something that is very important to the Jedi, the ability to defend themselves or others from threats that they'll face, or to maybe literally fight the dark side with it. So that is why Obi-Wan would say it is your life, because having one could mean life or death. I've also seen or heard others say that this is a line that has a very deep or profound meaning behind it that we perhaps can't even fully understand, or that it is maybe talking about a sort of symbiotic relationship between the Jedi and the Kyber crystal that is at the heart of the lightsaber, that the crystal chooses its Jedi and then aids them, and they should respect that choice and all of that. Which honestly isn't an idea I necessarily find to be a bad one or anything, but I don't think that's the meaning George Lucas was going for with that line. Instead, I think it's simply more about how the lightsaber is the symbol of a Jedi, or the Jedi Order itself, that it is essentially synonymous with them. I mean, what is the first thing you, here in the real world, think of when you hear the word Jedi? Or what do you envision? Probably a lightsaber, or a Jedi wielding one. And if that's not the first thing you think of, it's probably one of the first things. It's certainly way up there. And I think it's safe to say that it is like that in the Star Wars galaxy too, that when people think of the Jedi, they envision them as protectors wielding lightsabers. And the Jedi want that to be their sort of image. They want the good people in the galaxy to see them as protectors they can trust and to feel safe around them because of having that lightsaber in part. And for the bad guys in the galaxy to fear them and those lightsabers that they have. Even Anakin, when he's a slave on Tatooine, he recognizes one, though he calls it a laser sword, and he only gets a brief look at it, and he talks about how no one can kill a Jedi after Qui-Gon suggests that maybe he killed a Jedi and took it from him. Clearly, Anakin has this very pronounced and idealized version of the Jedi in his mind, and it is attached to that lightsaber. And so I'd imagine that one of the last things a Jedi would want to happen is what Qui-Gon suggested he did, that he killed a Jedi and took it from him, that he has their lightsaber and could now use it to do who knows what, and those things could sully the image of the Jedi. It also would be bad for, a Jedi to lose their lightsaber and for someone else to get their hands on it and to start calling themselves or pretending to be a Jedi, and for people to automatically trust them because they have, again, the lightsaber, the symbol of a Jedi. And thus Obi-Wan is going to be rather upset when Anakin almost loses his, and he scolds him for it. I really think that line in Attack of the Clones could be just that simple. All this is even backed up by something George Lucas said in one of those webisodes for episode 3, which are these little shorts or a little documentary series that was coming out around the time of episode 3. And in one of these episodes, one called "This Weapon Is Your Life," coincidentally enough, he had this to say.
Each culture has to have its own kind of weapon, which reflects the ideology of that particular culture and what they think about and the way they do things.
There's even then how Obi-Wan describes the lightsaber as he gives it to Luke in A New Hope as the weapon of a Jedi.
What is it? Your father's lightsaber. This is the weapon of a Jedi Knight.
And so again, I think what Obi-Wan says to Anakin, the scolding he gives him, if you will, it's more about him not wanting to see someone else get their hands on a lightsaber and to misrepresent the culture of the Jedi or their ideology by using it in any number of potentially nefarious ways. Though that said, it's not that the weapon isn't truly significant to the Jedi. It clearly is, considering it is attached to a sort of rite of passage that they have, when a youngling is taken to Ilum to find their kyber crystal, and the crystal chooses them, and they construct their first one ever, and all of that. But again, in that moment in episode 2, that particular line, it's just Obi-Wan saying, don't let the symbol of the Jedi, of who and what you are, your life, fall into the wrong hands and be used to tarnish that image. Alright, let's now move on to this question from Cadillac DeMille, who asked, Hey Thor, what do you think about the whole essence transfer explanation for Palpatine's survival? I think the idea of essence transfer is stupid. I'd much rather if key to eternal life was stealing the life from another, so, like to fit into what Disney is trying to do, he's making clones with high midi-chlorian count to steal their life, kind of like a vampire. But the catch is, in order to steal one's life, they have to have a high midi-chlorian count. I think body swapping is dumb. And I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of the idea of body swapping or essence transfers or whatever you'd like to call them, even though certainly Palpatine in The Rise of Skywalker isn't even close to the first time we've seen it in Star Wars. He himself did it in the EU, and others did it as well. And you could also argue that, in a way, it makes sense or would be possible, potentially, given what Yoda said about luminous beings in The Empire Strikes Back, that the body is only crude matter that houses who or what we really are. That, yeah, there is this, I guess you could call it, metaphysical component to their existence. Even Force ghosts prove that there is something beyond the body that, in theory, can endure after death. And again, in theory, could move into a new body, I suppose. Furthermore, I do think it makes sense that Palpatine would be looking for every or any way to live forever that he could. That, yeah, he would consider or explore every avenue, no matter how wild or crazy it might be, like everything from transferring his essence to, as you kind of suggest, using high midi-chlorian count blood to sustain him somehow like a type of vampire. And I like it because I have always agreed with the idea that Sith would absolutely be obsessed with eternal life, that death would be this extremely terrifying thing to them, not that we all don't fear it, but since they only live for themselves, that they are the very epitome of selfishness, to the point where it's almost impossible for them to truly care about other people, that they'd be incapable of finding any sort of peace or comfort in anything or anyone they were leaving behind, because all that matters to them is their power and the moment they live in, if that makes sense. Alright, now let's move on to this comment from Thanks Hermione, who asked, Hey Thor, if we didn't get the sequels and got a CGI show made by the people involved in the Clone Wars series where Luke rebuilt the Jedi Order, what would you have him change or explore regarding the old ways? One thing that really stood out to me was how wrong it was that the Jedi had child soldiers like Ahsoka. And I mean, certainly it feels like having child soldiers, or including their Padawans in the war, was not a good thing for the Jedi to partake in. Though that said, and I'm not really trying to exactly defend it here, but at the same time, being a child does not exempt you from the horrors of war. Plenty of children in the Clone Wars or wars here in the real world have suffered and died or experienced unimaginable tragedies that will scar them for life because of war. Plenty of children are forced to fight in wars, no matter their age really, because it will come to their front door essentially. And so a part of me wonders if the Jedi wanted their Padawans to see and experience war, to understand just how horrible it is and can be, to know what they're always trying to prevent. Keeping in mind the main job of a Jedi is to avoid wars and conflicts, or one of the main jobs. It is to be a peacekeeper or ambassador who sees to it that two sides find peaceful resolutions. George Lucas has even talked about how the Jedi are not supposed to fight in wars, that it basically goes against their very nature, and is a big reason why, yeah, they lost or were defeated by Palpatine in the end. Now, as for what I would explore or change in a show where Luke rebuilt the Jedi Order, well, this could probably be a pretty long answer, but I would absolutely explore Jedi and attachments and how they deal with their emotions. Because I think these are the most misunderstood things when it comes to the Jedi, as I've said before. So many people think they suppress all their emotions or are not allowed to have them somehow, or they're not allowed to possess literally anything or have no friends whatsoever, when all of that couldn't be any further from the truth. Jedi, of course, experience emotions just like everyone else. It's just that they don't let themselves be ruled by those emotions, as they can and do have friends, good friends, and can pursue interests beyond just being a Jedi. They can have hobbies, if you will. And though it might be kind of boring to some, or many wouldn't watch it, But I almost think the best type of show you could create to destroy these misconceptions might be almost a type of slice of life show that shows how Luke's students deal with all of these things and how Luke also comes to understand them better, keeping in mind his love for his family and his friends. I honestly think, yeah, some would again hate it because it wasn't just about lightsabers and fighting and cool stuff, and that's just what they think Star Wars is, right or wrong, for better or worse. But I think some would really appreciate it and enjoy it and come to understand the Jedi way better because of it. I think it could clear up, again, a lot of things people get completely wrong about the Jedi and their ways and what attachments actually are. The Jedi don't live these cold, horrible, emotionless lives where they have no friends and no interest beyond just being a Jedi. They find great peace and joy in the way they live, and it gives them a profound sense of meaning. It is the opposite of the Sith who fear death because they leave nothing behind. When the Jedi die, they know they have done good. They know they have, hopefully, left the galaxy a better place than the way they found it. Well, I think that's going to be all I got for this time. Now it is your turn to take to the comments below and tell me what you think about any of my answers here. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Or whatever. You can also ask a question for a future lightning response video. All you got to do is start your comment off with "Hey Thor" and then ask away. And if you have asked one before that didn't get answered in a video, do not hesitate to ask it again. There have been many, many really great questions that I just didn't get to and have now kind of slipped through the cracks. So again, feel free to leave a question you left before, but whatever you choose to do, leave a comment somewhere and let's talk some Star Wars. And until next time, thanks for watching.